We have another presentation from our Norwegian society who are doing something very exciting. They are aligning with the Sustainable Development Goals, and the president, Ingrid Stange, would like to talk to you a little bit about this and what they're doing and perhaps how you can also get involved. So please put your hands together for Ingrid.
Thank you very much. This is the first time I'm at this convention, but it's not my first time with Montessori. I was a co-founder of the first Norwegian Montessori schools back in '91, and I started another Montessori school in actually the same year with a kindergarten, and then elementary, and then junior high school. So I've been around in the Montessori community locally for 30 years. I have 4 children who all grew up as Montessori children, and that's why I started, because as opposed to Annie, the first speaker, Aisha, sorry. I did not conform with the school I went to. I made so many questions as a child that I left school and I said, if I ever have children, I'll do something else. And I did. So I will talk a little about our role in as a future. We are the future of education, and I think it's very important that we understand that and that the community around us understand it. And I think we are a very good, well-kept secret. And I see from the strategy now that this secret is now going to be revealed. One of our big tasks is to prepare our young people to understand the times in which they live. But then we also must understand the times in which we live. We know our history. Through the cosmic education, we understand where we come from. But things are changing very fast these days. This is the growth of population. When I was born, we were 2.7 billion people. Now we are 7.5 or something like that, and growing by the minute. Also, technology changes very fast. If you look at when it starts to grow around the 40s and 50s, in 1946, you will all remember Maria Montessori saying that technology changes so fast that we have to follow, and we have to help our students understand the time. And we as teachers, or I am not a teacher myself, but we as parents and teachers must understand where we are. And the question is, how can we prepare our children for a future we do not know anything about? People are discussing this all over the world. Teachers, policy makers, and business leaders. I have my own background from business before I started with other things which were more important to me. And I worked with McKinsey for some time, and McKinsey has now done a major program on what is required from the future, for the future from our children. And here are some of the words. Lifelong learning, learn how to learn. Flexibility, effectively deal with information. Creative skills, prepare yourself. Analytical skills, connect with others. Empathy, you can mention it all. And whether it's McKinsey or World Economic Forum or whoever you talk to, these are the requirements of the future of job seekers. 65% of the jobs that will exist when our children start working do not exist at this time. We have no idea what the nature of the jobs will be. How can we prepare them? But we see what they need. And then we can all say, doesn't this sound familiar? Isn't this Montessori? That's what it is. We have the education that can prepare our children for the future, and we must be better at telling that. We talk about the history of Montessori, which we can be proud of. And when we stand up, we talked about giant shoulders here. We stand on one set of giant shoulders that we can be so proud of, all of us. But we are the future. And the genius of the Montessori pedagogical principles is that it meets the child. And the child, our human beings do not change even though technology changes. The needs of the child will be the same. So this is familiar. We are the future of the school. So our responsibility, we have two major responsibilities. Prepare our students for the world in which they live and that they will meet. I would say check. We do that. Next, help them become change makers and be part of the solution. So here is then the next issue then. While we are growing as population in the world, we also pollute. It's a very similar development. And this is what's called the global anthropogenic CO2 emission. And anthropogenic means that we create it. It's human created. And this is quite scary. And we all remember the climate agreement in Paris, where all countries agreed to fight CO2 emission so that we should try to keep the increase of the temperature of the world below 2 degrees. We will probably not succeed in that, but we should keep it as low as absolutely possible. And 2 degrees doesn't sound very, very big, but it is. It's dramatic. And we see now research shows that it's more dramatic than we even thought of, as ice is melting in the Antarctica and in the Arctic areas. And what will happen is that countries like the Netherlands may be very strong because you know how to keep the water outside of you. But it's really scary. And I myself working often in, for example, in Asian countries where the climate changing are so detrimental to the rural areas because they cannot plan the growing, they cannot plan anything. So this is really, really scary. And we also know from 2015, the Sustainable Development Goals, that all the countries in the UN signed these goals. These are 17 goals which we all can work together towards to make sure that we can have a planet in which we can all live well within the limits of what the planet can produce. And it is believed that we will be somewhere between 9 and 12 billion people by 2050. So to be able to live in this planet, we all have to work hard to find our way of being a change maker. And the good thing about these goals is that they are quite practical. If you go down and into each goal, you can see, okay, what can I do? So, and since I have worked both in an organization I founded that's called Partnership with Change, which works on these specific goals, and Montessori, it occurred to me that Montessori is the best ambassador for these Sustainable Development Goals because they are aligned so well with our philosophy. So I will give you a few examples of what we have done in Norway. And so we started in my little school in a small town outside of Oslo called Drøbak. We started with this Montessori 2030 as a strategy where we went through with all the students, all the teachers, to go through how can we be part of the solution for the Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, we cannot all do everything, but all of us can do something. So we started discussing what is our vision, what is our strategy, and how does it align with the Sustainable Development Goals. So I will give you two examples of what we did. On the goal climate action, which I think is goal number 13, we looked at how can we be better at the climate, with the climate issues. First thing was we studied the Paris Agreement, we studied the scientific research on the 2 degrees limit and what can be done, and then looked into how can we make significant change. We can all, of course, reuse, what you call it? Thank you, recycle. But what are the biggest uses of or emission of CO2? And it turns out, for example, buildings, the way we build houses. This is a Norwegian number. It's probably higher in Norway than other countries because we need to heat up houses. But we do not need to cool down houses, so maybe it's the same. But buildings stand for 40% of the CO2 emission. So to build smart is very smart, because once you set up a building, it will last for at least 50 years. Another use or another source of CO2 emission, which we probably don't think much of, is the IT technology, because you have servers that need to be cooled. And IT stands for more emission of CO2 than the entire air planes in the world. So we should be aware, every time we Google, it's like driving 150 meters with a large Range Rover diesel. So think of it. But it doesn't, so it's a question of, can we be smarter in the way we use servers? Can servers be produced in a different way? Because we are where we are and we need the technology and we should be part of it. So we could not do much with the IT technology, but we could do something with the buildings. So what we did, first of all, what are the issues? Why is it important? Why is it relevant to us? How does it link to the Montessori philosophy? How does it relate to the other SDGs? Because everything is connected to everything, as we all know. So the students were invited to do research, the teachers were involved, and of course, I am the chair of the school, and the initiative, of course, came, not of course, but it came from me, since I am working very hard on the SDGs as it started, but I included the entire board. And then we had brainstorms, we defined cost benefits, how could we prioritize, what did we want to do. And of course, there's a lot to do, but one should start with the most effective first. We defined responsibilities and action plans, and then we acted. So a few weeks ago, we opened the Powerhouse, which is called. The new building for the junior high school, which is state-of-the-art technology on the most environmentally friendly house built in the world right now. And it's quite interesting. So this building, and it was quite daring, because I knew we had a very tight budget. Running a school in Norway is not something you make money on. I guess never anywhere, and at least not Montessori. We are not allowed to take more, we have a limit to how much we can take from the parents, from the government. We have a very specific cost or income from the government. We have a very specific salary levels. So we could not increase, we could not have any costs over what the budget was. But I called a person a very famous architect in the UK called Michael Pollan, who has the Eden project, which some of you might know. He was the brain behind that. And I asked him, if I want to build the most environmentally friendly building in the world, where do I go? And he said, you have a Norwegian architectural firm called Snøhetta. They are state-of-the-art. So I went to them. This is a huge architectural firm. They built the library in Alexandria. They built Ground Zero in New York. And here I come with a tiny little school in a small town outside of Oslo. And they said, yes, we will, because you're the first who dare to ask this bold question. So they brought together something they call the Power Alliance, which is a major construction company and lots of experts. We were 20 people sitting around the table to plan this from the day one. We are, so you do not, normally you have something you call zero-emission houses or plus houses where you produce energy on a daily basis. This house includes the production of the materials that the house was built by, the transportation of the material to build the house, the process of building a house, and also they have included the process of taking the house down if we do that in 60 years. And we are still producing energy. So, and the students can see every day, they can see how much energy do we produce today, every day. And of course, this is a tiny house. There's a limit to how much effect this will have on the CO2 emission, even though it's positive. So the next thing is to share and inspire. And the interesting thing is that when this house was opened, we had lots of news articles. We had the Minister of Education come and open, and he came back to his office and said to his staff that you all have to go down and see this house, it's marvelous. So now they are thinking of how can they do this. And we had the Oslo area municipality office for building schools. They were down there 2 days ago. 25 people came to study, how did you do this? How could this happen? And we ended up with staying within budget. And these are people, this is a woman from the construction company traveling around and explaining. And we are now having visitors from Australia, Serbia, so far, and this school was opened a month ago. So this is, what we see is that we can all do things and we can share to create ripple effect. We had very much student involvement, and the interesting thing is of course they participated in the entire process. And one of the students who was an 8th grader who was a part of the project, when we had the first model of the school built, sort of on the table, she looked at it and she said, this was an 8th grader, and others were architects and all kinds of experts. And she said, wouldn't it be smarter to place this school here? Because then you would have all the sun coming much better, and then we would have, this was more optimism. Oh, thank you. I'm getting apathy, you know. Optimized. And now the school is put where she suggested. So she's very proud. We present the results to visitors. Of course, we have so many visitors that we have now decided we have to do something because it takes so much time of the education. Even though the students, of course, are the presenters. But we cannot focus so much on that all the time. And they have internalized, and the teachers have internalized this totally into the curriculum and to the everyday work. Everything they do is now focused on the climate. For example, every Monday there is a group of students going out fishing. We have our own fishing boat because this school lies by the sea. And we have been fishing cod, which there has been a lot of. And there were some articles in the newspaper that cod is there is less cod now in this fjord than it used to be. So the students decided, let's stop fishing cod. Let's use the seaweed, let's collect seaweed and see what we can do. So now they are drying seaweed and trying to see how can we make vitamin pills and sell. So they are selling vitamin pills based on dried seaweed. So it's very interesting. And of course they are so proud. And one of the students came and said, I'm in love with my school. And to hear that from a 14-year-old is quite specific. So we can check also, or we can never check it totally, but we should also see how can we check that help students become change makers. So based on this, we created the, I see that there has been some, we created the Montessori 2030.org page, which is an initiative now by the Norwegian Montessori Society, where we are filling in ideas from various schools, because we can all do something. Everybody cannot build a new school. We did that. We are doing other things also, but I would just use that example. And we invite all schools to go in and see what can I do, what are we doing? And every school is already doing a lot of things, and we can inspire each other and see that this can help us become SDG schools and actively act on the SDGs. And just to use another example that we are also working with, if I go back to this page. Thank you. There is another example, which is the where we work on SDG 3, 4, 5, I guess, and 17. 3 is health, good health for everyone. 4 is education. 5 is empowerment of women. And 17, of course, is the partnership. What we did together with the organization I am running, have I used 12 minutes? Yeah. So I have time to talk about that. I have 5 minutes left, yes, before the, my other organization, Partnership for Change, we work in Ethiopia. We work with empowering women. So what we're doing is seeing how can we help women through education, job creation, and business development that they get support in doing. How can we help them become leaders in their society and in their own lives? We do not create business, we help them create business. So we look for entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs that we see have a good value and a good purpose, and we help them thrive. One of these social entrepreneurs had started a vocational school for trafficked women that were living on the street, very often having a child, because they were raped, and as soon as they had children, they were uninterested for the slavery, so they were living on the street. And what we saw was we helped the woman grow her school in terms of creating an income basis so that she didn't always have to ask for money, but can make her own money to run the school. We helped her expand the curriculum, and then we helped creating jobs. But then we saw that these girls are not going to work because they don't dare to leave their kids on the street. And when you look at the kindergarten or toddler care in Ethiopia, they actually call it warehousing in their Amharic language, which shows what they're thinking. They just put the children somewhere to keep them. And this goes for even with people who can pay for it. So we decided together, let's start a toddler care program. And of course, that has to be Montessori. So now we are developing together with the government in Ethiopia a curriculum that is based on Montessori. We are trying to make it a Montessori program. This is a process. There are political issues that we need to take care of. And this is now being a very successful training program so far for assistants. We hope to be able to train teachers, and there we invite all of you to take part, either as sending down good teachers who can help build this program, or inviting local people from the Ethiopian community to visit your schools to see how it can be run. We can have sister schools, and our kindergarten and our school in Drabak, our little school, is now supporting this program. So this is another area where we collaborate. So we help with health, we help with education, and we help with women empowerment. So that's another example. And then we were talking about technology. It's better to do it that way, thank you. We talked about This is... The time is up, so I have to show the film.
How long is it?
It's 10 minutes. I thought I had 20 minutes.
No, it's that close.
Okay.
Maybe show the film at a later stage.
Yeah, okay. So I'm sorry about that. We have made a movie, and I'll just very quickly say, we talked about IT here. We are starting now a webinar from the Montessori community towards all the members in Norway. It will be, we start now next week, so that we can inspire each other in this Montessori 2030. And I was hoping to show a movie about that was just made for the parents to market the Montessori concept, but I misunderstood. I thought I had more time, so we can show it afterwards. It's been a very well received marketing.
We'll try and show it later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.